Aesha Scott was the heart of Below Deck Down Under. She was Captain Jason Chambers' right hand for 2 seasons. The show earned an Emmy nomination during her tenure. She and Jason had one of the best captain and chief stew dynamics the franchise has ever produced. And then, the season 3 trailer dropped, and she simply wasn't in it. No announcement, no farewell post, nothing. She was just gone. And then it got stranger, because when Aesha got married, she didn't invite Captain Jason, she invited Captain Sandy, and when fans started speculating about why, she had to publicly shut down rumors that she and Jason had hooked up. So what actually happened? Because the official explanation and the actual story aren't quite the same thing. Let's go through it. Let's start with what Aesha was to that show. She joined Below Deck Down Under as Chief Stew for its very first season in 2022, working alongside Captain Jason, and she was the reason a lot of people watched. She'd already built a following as the second stew on Below Deck Mediterranean Season 4, but Down Under was where she became a genuine leader, funny, warm, but capable of putting her foot down when it mattered. The chemistry between her and Jason became the show's foundation. Fans compared them to Captain Lee and Kate Chastain, which is about the highest compliment you can pay a duo in this franchise. The show thrived. It even picked up an Emmy nomination. Then came the first clue that something was shifting. In spring 2024, the trailer for Below Deck Mediterranean Season 9 dropped, and there was Aesha, back on the Med, working with Captain Sandy Yawn again, but not as a second stew this time, as Chief Stew. Fans immediately started panicking. There'd been a leaked photo of her filming the previous summer, and the assumption had been that she was just helping Sandy out of a jam for part of the season. That wasn't the case. She'd taken the full Chief Stew role on Med, and the question everyone asked was, does this mean she's leaving Down Under? For months, nobody knew. Fans held out hope she'd do both. Then, the Below Deck Down Under Season 3 trailer arrived in early 2025, and it confirmed the worst. Chef Serena Mace Ralph was back, Deckhand Harry Van Vliet was back, Captain Jason was obviously back, and Aesha was nowhere. A new Chief Stew named Lara Rigby had taken her place. So Captain Jason finally addressed it directly with E! News, and his explanation was diplomatic. He said, "I would say Aesha had a story to tell. She had something to finish off. Her and Sandy get on really well. They work well together. Crew leave, and she had to go and do that. Which is fine. She's always welcome back." So the official reason is essentially, she had unfinished business on Below Deck Mediterranean. And that actually tracks. Because think about her arc. Aesha started on Med as a second stew under Hannah Ferrier in Season 4. She came back in Season 5 to help out after Hannah was fired. So Med was where she began, but she'd never let it. Going back as Chief Stew was her closing the loop on the show that made her. That's a legitimate, meaningful career reason, and I believe it's a real part of the answer. But here's the detail from that same interview that told everyone something more was going on. When E! asked Jason whether he and Aesha had stayed in touch, he said, "No, I haven't. I haven't heard from Aesha for a while. She's been doing her own thing. I know she's been really busy. I do track her. I know she's had some great success being a little entrepreneur, which is fantastic. I know she's getting engaged and married." And then he added, "Our paths will cross soon. We're in total different directions." Read that again? He's finding out about her engagement the way we all did, by following her online. Two people who spent 2 full charter seasons in each other's pockets, who fans considered one of the great duos in the franchise, had gone completely quiet with each other. That's not a scheduling conflict. That's a relationship that cooled. And then came the wedding. Aesha married Scott Dobson, and Captain Sandy Yawn was invited. Captain Jason was not, and when fans noticed, the speculation went exactly where you'd expect. On Watch What Happens Live, Aesha addressed it head-on. She said, "The majority of the comments, just for the record, are people saying it's because they've hooked up, and then she's running away. And that is absolutely not the case." So she flatly denied any romance. But then, she gave the actual reason she didn't invite him, and it's genuinely a little sad. She explained that people constantly compared her fiancé to Jason. She said, "I also don't think it's respectful, because so many people would come up to me and be like, 'Oh, we like Scott, but I really wish you were with Jason.'" That's the answer nobody expected. She didn't invite Captain Jason to her wedding because the fandom had spent years shipping the two of them so aggressively that having him there would have been disrespectful to the man she was actually marrying. Think about how unfair that is. Aesha and Jason had a great professional relationship and a genuine friendship, and viewers turned it into a romance narrative so persistent that it cost them the friendship. She had to physically distance herself from a colleague to protect her marriage from strangers on the internet. That's a real consequence of parasocial fandom, and it's the most underreported part of this whole story. Now let's talk about the other factors, because there were several, and they all stacked up at once. First, Season 2 was brutal. That's the season where bosun Luke Jones was fired for sexual misconduct after attempting to get into an incapacitated Margot Sisson's bed, and Stu Laura Bialascaun was fired in the same stretch for her own behavior and for defending him. Aesha was the one who raised the alarm and went straight to Captain Jason. The franchise handled it well, and the crew was rightly praised, but the emotional toll on Aesha was enormous, and on top of that, losing 2 crew members at once left her interior team short-handed for the rest of the charter season. She carried that season on her back, emotionally and operationally. Commentators at the time were openly saying she should step away before she burned out. Second, Below Deck Med Season 9 was also hard. As Chief Stew, she dealt with significant managerial challenges from her stews, and multiple reports described her as visibly exhausted and burnt out by the end. So she went straight from one draining season into another. That's back-to-back years of high-pressure leadership on camera. Third, her life outside the show exploded in the best possible way. She got engaged to Scott Dobson. She launched Drop, her alcoholic coconut water brand, which is now stocked across Australia. She bought a house in her hometown of Tauranga, and she's been very open about her long-term plan. She told Pedestrian, "I want to do Below Deck for a few more years, and then ideally I'd love to be a TV presenter. I really want to do things like The Amazing Race or Survivor." And she described Drop as kind of like my safety net for TV stuff, just in case something happens. So Aesha is a person actively building an exit ramp. Not from Below Deck immediately, but from reality TV eventually. And fourth, the simple practical reality. You cannot film 2 Below Deck seasons in 1 year. These shoots are 6 weeks of 18-hour days in a foreign country. She had a wedding to plan and a business to launch. Something had to go. She chose Med, where her story started. So what happened to Down Under without her? Honestly, it's been rocky. Her replacement Lara Rigby came in with genuine yachting credentials and a high standard, but Jason himself flagged the problem. She doesn't know the format of the show, and it showed early. Lara broke down crying under the pressure within the first episodes, needing Chef Serena to console her. And then, Lara and Serena immediately started butting heads. Jason described their dynamic as a little tense, which is captain speak for a war. Some critics argued a stricter Chief Stew was exactly the refresh the show needed after Season 2, and that Aesha's team sometimes took advantage of her friendliness. There's a case for that, but the warmth left with her. So is she ever coming back? Jason left the door wide open. She's always welcome back. And he said, "We used to look forward to working together, and we will connect again soon, I'm sure. There's no bad blood. There's no scandal. There's just 2 people whose careers went in different directions at the same moment, complicated by a fandom that made their friendship awkward." Here's my honest read. Aesha didn't leave Down Under because of drama. She left because she was burnt out from the hardest season the franchise has ever produced. Because Med was where her story started, and she wanted to finish it. Because her business and her marriage were taking off, and because she physically could not do both shows. And the friendship with Jason didn't end in a fight. It just quietly faded, while 2 busy people went opposite directions, with a whole lot of internet noise making it weird. She's still the best Chief Stew this franchise has. And I don't think we've seen the last of her on a boat. Do you want Aesha back on Down Under? Pop off in the comments, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!